and welcome back to Pip Explores. This week we're talking about descenders.
When you ain't got no money, you got.
So before I dive into this video, I just want to make this clear. This is not an instructional how to use these devices. This is an informational that what are the different types of descending devices. If you would like to learn how to use these descenders, I highly suggest finding a local grotto and having them teach you how to safely rappel. Now that that's out of the way, let's dive in. So there are about as many types of descenders as there are cavers, and today we're going to focus on two main types: fixed friction and variable friction. Now there is a third category of descenders called bobbins, but I'm not going to be discussing those because personally I don't have experience with those and I don't like talking about things that I don't actually know about. But I do know a lot about these two types, so we're going to talk about those. Fixed friction descenders are your things like ATCs, piranhas, figure eight, all of those things that you have one friction setting on. Sometimes it can be increased before you start rappelling, but basically once you're on rappel, you have a single type of friction to use. And the other type is variable friction devices, and these are primarily racks, and we'll get into it. So first up, we have fixed friction devices. So here are two of my fixed friction devices. This is an ATC and this is a piranha. And these have a lot of advantages. Typically, these are a lot lighter. You're going to notice that even visually, this looks smaller than my rack. And they're smaller, they're lighter. These are great for small drops. Now, people have different opinions about what that means, and this video is a lot of generalization, but I wouldn't use either of these on a drop more than 150 feet. Now, again, generalization, my opinion. You don't have to agree with me. That's just what I personally do. Now, these also don't dissipate heat as well because there's not a lot of surface area here on either of these to dissipate that heat, which means that these can get pretty hot, especially if you're flying. And these are a lot more dependent on your hand. Because this is a fixed friction device, it has one setting. You can't like add or subtract anything to make it more frictiony or less frictiony. So sometimes that means that you are shoving the rope through because your rope weight's too much. And sometimes that means that you're holding on because there's not enough friction in this device. Again, it works great for small drops. I'm not denying that. But it's not as customizable as a variable friction device. Now this is an ATC. Rock climbers are very, very familiar with this. It is great for rock climbing pitches because you can get down, get up. It's also a belay device. Fun fact, most rappelling devices can also be used as belay devices, but it is relatively simple. This is my piranha. It's actually kind of somewhere in between fixed and variable friction. It does not have to be detached from you to load it, which I personally really like. It's very similar in design to a figure eight, but a figure eight you have to take off to load and then reattach it to yourself, whereas this you can stay attached and properly load it. You do have to open this carabiner, but it's not coming off of you. It's just opening and then you close it. This also has all of these little wings here, which can be added or subtracted to add or remove friction. But a lot of them are difficult to do while in motion, which is why I'm classifying this more as a fixed friction. You can decide at the top of your rappel how much friction you want, but a lot of the customizations on this are harder to do while on a weighted rappel. Not saying that you can't. You totally can always add one of these wings in and it adds a little bit more friction for you. I'm just saying it's a little harder to adjust minutely than a true variable friction device. Now we have our variable friction device, or my rack. Now this is my standard size rack. Racks come in a lot of different sizes, a lot of different shapes. This is my standard rack. It does not have a twisted frame. It has a straight frame, which you guys can see here. A twisted would have this eye turned a different way. It also does not have a hyper bar on it. You can get a hyper bar. It's another option. All in all, this is your standard rack. Now, as you can visually see, this is a lot bigger and a lot heavier than those other two rappel devices, but this can be used on any drop. Now, you might want a longer rack for a longer rappel. For instance, when I rappelled El Capitan in 2019, I did use a 24-inch rack instead of this, which is a standard 14 inches, because it makes it easier to adjust the friction on a drop that is that long. But the device is still the same thing, it's just got more space in it. So this can be used on pretty much any drop. 30 feet can use this. 2,000 feet can use this. You might want a little bit of modification. You might want a smaller or bigger one, but it's the same general principle. This device also dissipates heat a lot better than either of those other two because it has all of these bars. There's a lot more surface area here, and so just by physics, this dissipates heat a lot better. Also, typically people will have a heavy, like a solid bar on their top. These are each called bars. So this one would typically be like a heavier solid metal bar, which is going to really help with that heat distribution. Additionally, and the thing that makes this really a variable friction device is that the device itself will control how much friction, not your hand and how hard you're squeezing. So these bars can be pushed up closer together to create more friction, or spread out or dropped to lose friction. And that is what makes this device different than those others. It has the ability to be customized while on a rope throughout your rappel. So when I started at LCAP, I had 5 of my 7 bars on my rack, and when I got to the bottom, I had all 7 on. I was able to minutely adjust. I could stop on rope very easily. You can do a lot more things with a rack than you can do with a fixed friction device because it is designed to handle that a lot better. Now, like I said, there are other descenders out there. There are a variety of different types, but those are our main 2 categories, with bobbins being the third, and like I said, we're not going to be discussing those today. What type of descender do you use to get down a rope? Let me know in the comments below. Are you a caver or a climber? Because I guarantee that will have an effect on it. If you have any questions, camping, caving, hiking, rappelling, backpacking, any of that stuff, please let me know. You can comment below. You can send me an email at piffexplores@gmail.com, or you can message me on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. We are on all of those platforms at Piff Explores. Don't forget to check out the website, piffexplores.com, if you haven't already. Hit that subscribe button, and we will see you next week. Bye!